Last lecture we talked about Kazakh culture in 20th century, especially in Soviet Union period, when Kazakhstan was a part of Soviet Union countries. So we talk about contradictory trends in cultural spheres. We talk how culture developed in a pre-war period, post-war period, during the war period, and also we talk about how other cultural institutions were developed in that period, how science appeared, universities, how music, literature, theater developed, and most of all, this development happened due to Soviet Union influences. So today, our lecture, we go further, and next historical period, modern period, 20th-21st century, our time. So our topic is Kazakh culture in the context of modern world processes, and we are going to discuss two questions: globalization and the problem of self-identity, and the second one, main tendencies and direction of contemporary Kazakh art. First question: globalization and the problem of self-identity of ethnic regional cultures. So globalization, it's an idea about the formation and extending of the relationship and interdependence of countries in different areas, such economy, military, finance, information, advanced technologies, and so on. The main idea of globalization to take out the boundaries between countries, to have equal opportunities and chances for every country in the world. It's based on internalization of capital, which includes the internalization, division of labor, the development and distribution of information technologies, which directed towards the formation of the global information space. Some scientists consider that globalization is an objective historical processes, and they mention that these processes for globalization started in medieval time, when trade as a main activities appeared. So many countries, west and east part of our world, started to communicate each other, made a relationship, to have equal rules, norms, and so on, and make agreement. Even though globalization is an objective process, is governed by those countries that have concentrated centers of the financial market, modern technologies, high labor productivity, a vast consumer market, and decisive role in military alliances. As a definition suggested, globalization is the idea of conducive interrelationship between different countries, brings out various favorable conditions for foreign governments to connect and thrive. Globalization helps to make a unit, to make one equal opportunities, and also involved different countries in one process, economical, cultural, technological, and so on. However, there are a lot of problems that give by these processes. And it's connected with education, even so, education, economy, and so on. Even the main aim to have equal opportunity, unfortunately, there is some countries that don't have opportunity chances to be equal, since it's connected with their development, their mentality, their attitudes toward to the world, and so on. So also there is some problems that connecting with identity, especially adequate understanding of identity, spiritual values, and criterion of education and people awareness. Also, there is some benefits to and fears of losing national identity. Expansion and deepening of globalization turn individuals' identity into a susceptible and sensitive factor in social relations at various levels. Currently, underdevelopment of many countries, in particular culture, education, tolerance toward another, and democracy and the political elite is increasing. So we understood the globalization effect on personal and national identity. So what is identity? As shortly, simply, we say it's understanding of people and awareness of people, who I am, what's its main function and role in this world. By definition, the concept of identity is a social relation, implies firstly a system of material and spiritual cultural values, primarily operating social, political, and legal institutions of a particular social institutions, thereby distinguishing from other societies. Secondly, the awareness, self-assessment by the state educations of the social group and its representatives, individuals, both of the equality with others and the qualitative difference from the subject of relations, their originality and uniqueness. It's both a system of functioning social institutions and a broad social historical relationship in which each side, through the other, realizes itself, its diversity, as well as similarity and equality with them. There is two sides of identity that we can see. The first one is positive identity. So we can say that, and the main motto of that is we are like that. We look to these people and we consider that we look the same of these people. We have the same mentality, roots, religions, language, and so on. And negative side of this identity is reflected the idea that we are different, we are the best. So the negative side is the worst one, if we can say. There are some levels and types of identity. So the levels could be personal and state, collective identity, and also there is difference between gender identity, sexual identity, ethnic identity, national identity, and so on. So the system of material, spiritual, and cultural values of society are the objective foundation of identity at any level, from personal to state. The system reflects the level of development and potential of all spheres of society. But such is also the contradiction between the social and personal principles of the social body, arising from the material and spiritual culture, including educational difference in the level of education. According to Lev Gumilev, identity is objective basis for concentration and mobilization. That is the passionate or passionate force of society. However, the status of public education and the effectiveness of the education system is directly influenced to the level of awareness and the level of identity. So, if knowledge is insufficient, it leads to bad emotions, bad acceptance, like hostility, xenophobia, aggressiveness toward others, the others and the alien, to grow in individual's character. Enlightenment also includes religious literacy. So when people is educated, engaged in self-education, they have a broad sense of understanding, able to understand different emotions, situations, people, rules, and principles, and so on. Globalization and connecting with this issue, personal identity or just identity, also influence to the development of culture in the world. So there are two critical trends in the development of contemporary world culture, can be mentioned here. So the first one, localization of national state culture, since many of nations now face to the problem how to keep the uniqueness, how to survive as a nation, as a state. And the second one, the integration of various cultures into a single planetary culture. Since we couldn't be apart, we couldn't live without communication with other rest of this world. So we need to engage in globalization, have to take some modern trends and be in trend to be competitive, to be known, to be acceptable by others. There are global trends in the development of modern civilization, which in turn complicates cultural and technical developments. Among those trends, we can mention the formation of information society, the emergence of modernist trends in art, manifestation of mass culture, since it's nowadays is most popular, more widely spread, quickly developed, faster developed rather than elite culture. Yeah. Next one, increasing influence of religion on the worldview of people and their practical activities. And also aggravation of global problems that connecting with environmental problems, war problems, and peace problems, and so on. All these factors makes it possible to speak about the involvement of modern Kazakhstan in the comprehensive processes for globalization. Spiritual culture develops in the same multifaceted way. The culture of Kazakhstan appears to be a complex, multi-level structure that lies the foundations of the large society in vast space. So we also can distinguish different types of culture nowadays in Kazakhstan. The first one we need to mention here and highlight the criteria of this division. So that influence to appearance of types of culture. So criterion are the degree of prevalence and rootedness of specific values in the public consciousness. The second one, complaints of the developed people's worldview. The next one, foundation of national character and its embodiment. Carriers of social values. Ideological content and sequences of spiritual development. So according, due to these criteria, we can distinguish following types of culture in Kazakhstan nowadays. Yeah, the first one, known and unknown culture. A known culture is a circulation culture that acceptable and know everyone. The second culture, unknown, had existed in the past or existed today in isolated social niches. In recent years, the known culture has expanded significantly. The second one, the culture of the individual, social groups, and society. Among social groups, the problems children culture, the youth culture, and adult generation culture have been existed. So we could see that how a culture of old people or adult people is different from culture and culture of youth and young generation preferences in music, in literature, in cinematography, for example. And you could see the big discrepancy between the difference of these cultures. The second and last one is capital and local culture, urban and rural. The classic are concentrated in the capital, in large cities, and the folk in the provinces. So most of all, more legend, mythology, epics are keeping in rural areas rather than in cities.